So we were dealing with this soil erosion, and is just now that we have introduced soil erosion, deals with the large scale displacement of soil from existing area to a new area or in any other place, as in river, ponds, etc. Okay. Now, having to say that, there are few important things that the different kinds of soil erosion that we discuss today is that one is called sheet erosion. Sheet erosion, also called is also known as, so okay, there is another called plain erosion. Plain erosion. The third one is then we can say this channel erosion. Channel erosion, then reel erosion, and finally would also take a little bit on this, is also a part of erosion only. This is landslides. Okay. So having to say this is the channel erosion, plain erosion, sheet erosion, plain erosion, channel erosion, reel erosion, gully, and landslides. Let me further explain on this. What happens here is, if you just observe these things in a somewhat more detail, in any kind of soil, it is particularly in a say deforested soil, or say mostly say deforested soil or disturbed soil, the erosion that is quite common is sheet erosion. Also, the sheet erosion is an usual form of erosion. It is a very typical, very common type of erosion. There is usual and common form of erosion. It happens like this. If you just just try to think of a slightly inclined soil surface, or the soil surface having a drain like this, and if you just observe this soil surface, you have there is no vegetation on this, generally no vegetation, or even if there are very little vegetation at areas like this, little vegetation in this area. You can see this kind of soil having if you see the structure here, you see, just observe that the top one is we have finer particles. In the finer particles, generally this is this so we have a finer, say the top one is, if you just for a simple description, if we see this one is, this is silt and clay, sand, gravel, and then you find boulders. Okay, this is how the soil is. Just freshly exposed soil. This soil does not get a support from any of the plants or anything that would hold them together. So generally, after a rainfall, generally say after a rainfall, if you just see this after a rainfall, say something like this, where the rainfall, large rainfall takes place, we observe across the plane, there would be this would be looking like after some time, this soil after some time would be looking like this, say, this one is after some time would be looking like this. Okay. Here you would observe that the surface has eroded, and a large part of, say, this larger particles, mostly larger particles have been exposed. Here you will find some of these particles still remaining here. So what usually used to be a structure which had a texture, if you can see now, the texture has gone change. We will find some sand, little sand, gravel, and boulders. So this is what has, and this particle, all this particle has mostly moved in this area. So here all the water, that is the water that begins to trickle, has moved from this area, to this to a particular, say, natural drain, or constructed drain, or any other surface. This is natural or constructed drain. Natural or constructed drain, it has moved. This is what is known as sheet erosion. This would be across the area, the total area would be affected. This is called the sheet erosion. So ideally what is happening is all the fine particles in the soil, with the force of the rainwater, would wash away from the surface and move towards a natural drain or a constructed drain. Okay, this is what is sheet erosion, which is pretty common. I mean, in any kind of soil, when the soil is without any support, the soil is without any support, we can see this kind of erosion taking place. Okay. Now this is what is the sheet erosion. This is the first form of erosion, which is quite common. In most kind of soil, if the soil is a natural process, the soil would undertake some erosion. If there is a plant canopy, it's like, in such cases, like even you can see this, is a large plants are there, large plants which are there already supporting this, there's a large plant canopy is there on top of the soil, then also there would be some erosion taking place. But this is a very nominal erosion, say about a very insignificant amount, maybe of the total soil volume, it would be about 2 to 3%. That is a natural process that takes place. But here again, if this one continues, this is continuing, we generally in some cases, if it is relatively, this is what is sheet erosion. In a plain erosion, what happens is, generally this particular, if you just observe this, if you observe a generally at higher steepness or higher gradient. At higher gradient, if the same thing is taking place in the higher gradient, you would observe that this particularly is this a larger body, a larger, this is would be where you can see this larger particles are being observed like this, whereas this total is a total surface. That total surface has moved into this area. This is called a plane erosion, where this is already a large volume in the plane, in the planar form from a plane would generally slide down. So this is what is almost similar to sheet erosion. The plane erosion is only in the sense that is a massive displacement, rapid or massive displacement of soil from the soil surface. So whether the sheet erosion is gradual, it is a gradual erosion. This is rapid and rapid and large scale. Rapid and large scale. So this is what is plane erosion, that is usually takes place in the soil. Okay. Having to draw from this, having to go from this, you would find this channel erosion. The channel erosion is like this. The next form is a channel erosion. The channel erosion, what we observe is you just observe it as a plane, as a plane like this. If you just observe a surface of soil like this, if you observe a surface of soil like this, this one is this is what is the drain. Say this is where is the natural drain. Say consider this. Okay, so you can think of it's a natural drain going out like this. All right. So here you can see is a natural drain which is going out like this. This one here, as soon as the fast rainfall takes place, what happens is generally in a surface like this, completely denuded surface. This is a deforested area. Remember this. This is also a deforested area, and also in agricultural fields it usually takes place. This is how it takes place first. This is where, this is depending on the soil characteristics, this is how the channel should be begin to form. The channel should be begin to form depending on the slope and depending on depending on the watershed. Say this is how the channels, should form. The channels should begin to form like this. The channels should begin to form like this. Okay. Now this would begin to expand. Over time. This would begin to expand. This would again take a turn, again move like this. Again, two channels should combine together somewhere. This is where so you can see this, they would begin to form. This is what is called channel erosion, through which what would happen is a channel, the small channels like this would form. Say this, the start of the channel would be like this, small one, then the channel should begin to widen. This channel should be begin to widen. So here it is like this, it would begin to widen. So these are the channels. These channels should be mostly start with say 1 to 2 centimeter, but at the end it can be up to 10 centimeter here. Okay, this is 1 to 2 centimeter. This is where it would start. So this is what is the channel. Okay, these channels, these channels, as I have said, this would combine, would form, and finally come here, and this would be all deposited. All this you can observe that the new deposition of soil taking place across the natural drain. So here you would observe that the new deposition has taken place. This new deposition has taken place. So this is what is the new deposition from all the soil surfaces. From the soil surfaces, all this are taking place here. Now here one important thing is this channel, it's this channel. Then channel. Then from the channel we find the reels, or the reel erosion, or the reels. We generally call them reels. So here this channel should begin to, after 10 centimeters say, this channel would begin to widen also at the bottom. This would also begin to widen at the bottom and also at the surface. So these are known as the reels. These are known as the reels. So this reel should be say about 15 to 20 centimeter here, and then it can be up to say about 25 centimeter to 30 centimeter, like this. This is what is a reel. This finally, from this, the reels, extended reels. So when there is extensive reel formations, this is what is the effect would be almost the same. Effect would be same, only the quantity of material that would be eroded would be more and more. Okay, this is a typical type of erosion that takes place, particularly in the agricultural field, in the denuded forest, or any other forest area, river banks. If you just observe the river banks, you will find this kind of erosion taking place. This is called a reel erosion. The reel erosion is these channels become deeper, so has this can be you can write down here the channel erosion is the first form of erosion that begins in a soil plane. Initially of low width and low depth, their depth begin to increase, and can reach about 30 to 40 centimeters. Since they are of low volume, they allow water to flow in high velocity. They allow water to flow, the rainwater to flow in high velocity. They allow the rainwater to flow in high velocity. Thereby increasing erosion, thereby increasing erosion, thereby increasing erosion, thereby increasing erosion at the bottom, thereby increasing erosion at the bottom as well as in the top, as well as in the top. When only the rills begin to form, when only the rills begin to form. Begins to form. Rill erosions begin to form. All the above erosion, decreases the amount of soil particles, and the amount of soil particles, particularly silt and clay, or the dissolvable fraction of soil nutrients, that are important for plant growth, that are important for plant growth. It would take quite a lot of engineering task to replenish the soil, back to its original quality. Gully erosion is in the gully erosion, rills begin to further widen, begins to further widen, and their network begins to intensify, This problem becomes particularly evident. This situation becomes particularly evident in high rainfall areas. High rainfall areas having deforested lands, and burning kind of cultivation, burning kind of cultivation. Let me explain you a little bit of this burning kind of cultivation, particularly if you go to northeast areas. This would be very common to you, a common feature. What happens there is this what they do, the tribals and mostly the local inhabitants, what they do is, this is the most unscientific form of cultivation. What happens is, the plant areas, they have mostly in this particularly in the on the mountain zones. Like what they do is they burn them. Okay, so the burn them means, what happens, burning them and then leaving it for raining. The first season of raining, what happens is, the soil becomes enriched with nitrogen, because the leaves, all the plants that have burnt, the soil would be enriched with nitrogen. So they do cultivation on that area. Say is a cultivation like, this you would find mostly the steppe kind of cultivation, something like this, something where you would find cultivation like this, cultivation. This is called the jhum kind of cultivation in those areas. Now what happens is, eventually suddenly the soil nutritional capabilities would go down, the soil would not be any more enriched. So after 2 or 3 cultivation, or say at most 3 or 4 cultivation, the soil again becomes infertile. So they move from that place to another place. This is a very typical kind of cultivation practice that they do. So as a result of that, this particular soil becomes completely denuded of large plants, as it is also at the same time the soil becomes weak. So in such areas, this kind of soil erosion, the gully erosion and all these things are quite common, and it leaves a large area of soil being completely denuded, completely devastated with erosion. See, of all these erosion types that we have discussed, from this, generally what happens mostly is in all kinds of soil, some sheet erosion is inevitable. You cannot help. Sheet erosion would take place. But this sheet erosion would take place. Gully erosion, however, this gully erosion of all these erosions, gully erosion is most widespread, difficult, and expensive expensive to control. Okay, that's the most expensive to control. And more expensive to control. It can be checked by regular inspection, spreading of vegetative matter like mulches. The mulches are mostly the cut hays. Then after the paddy, that is the hay that remains. Those, what they do is generally cut them into pieces and spread over the soil. So this is one way of spreading, reducing, spreading cut hays, leaf litter, and by vegetative matter spreading, inspection and other mechanical means and other mechanical means. So this can be only be restricted like this. Having to say also, is mostly another important aspect is the landslides. The landslides, somewhat different, in the sense that mostly the landslides usually is also related to denudation of forest, denudation of cutting of trees, essentially is also related to the cutting of trees, but there is some characteristic difference here. We just say, suppose there is say a particular rocky surface here. You have soil here, you have soil. If you make a section across, say, across any slope, make a section across any slope, and this is what is the rock surface, say, any granite or sandstone, the typical types of basalt or any kind of rock surfaces that we generally observe here. What happens is this essentially does not form in the form of a sheet erosion or a plain erosion. What happens is, as you can see this, the friction becomes less between the two surfaces. Between the internal, the friction becomes less between the two surfaces. This slope, this particular layer of soil begins to move. If you just observe this particularly, finally, this would be begin to almost completely begin to move like this. So the whole soil would be forming. So this one was the before. This was before. This one is after. Whereas this, here, after this has taken place, this particularly, what we observe is this total material, say from here, this total material has moved. The total material has moved. So this total material has actually moved from the total material here would basically, this total material here would essentially move into this area. So, thereby exposing this complete area. This is what is a typical landslide. This is what is typical landslide. The reasoning is somewhat different in the sense that this is particularly in the mountainous region when there is a large rock surfaces just below the sand and soil surfaces. The coefficient of friction reduces due to heavy rainfall, and that allows the soil surface to move from the top, en masse, that it begins to move en masse, and this is how it would look like at the end. So this is what is a landslide. The landslide is, you can just write down a line. Landslide is a rapid displacement of large mass of rock and soil, large mass of rock and soil, large mass of rock and soil in a moderately steep slope of more than 30 degrees. Landslides usually take place because of lowered frictional resistance between soil and rock surfaces. During rainy season, So connected with this erosion is another parameter that would be, these are the features of the erosion that we have discussed. There is another important parameter that also leads to a large scale displacement of soil. This is known as rainfall. Rain causes little problem if the intensity is low, that is would be say inches of per hour, inches of rain per, if little problem if the intensity is low, inches of rainfall per hour. But since most rains either fall too fast for the soil to absorb all water since most of the rains either fall too fast for the soil to absorb they saturate the soil in very little time. Rain causes little problem if the intensity is low, inches of rainfall per hour. That is how we generally discuss intensity. But since most rains either fall too fast for the soil to absorb all the water, they saturate the soil in very little time. The excess water by its energy displaces the structure of the soil, leading to erosion. So, rainfall intensity which is primarily so rainfall intensity which is primarily a geographical parameter. Rainfall's intensity which is primarily a geographical parameter contributes greatly to soil erosion. So, you can see this other things remaining same, being same. The variation in the rainfall would lead to higher erosion. If of the same kind of soil are existent in two places, like if the same kind of soil is present in say Rajasthan area or say even in Andhra Pradesh or in the particularly very high fall rainfall areas like in Assam or Tripura or places like that, depending on the geographical situation of that particular place, the erosion would increase or decrease. So, essentially erosion would be more in areas like in the northeast, like in the Assam, Tripura area, than that of in the regions like Hyderabad or regions like Rajasthan, like this, regions in Andhra Pradesh or like that. So, this is erosion. It is a very important parameter. We would come to discuss about this the rainfall, the important characteristics of rainfall. Important characteristics are rainfall. Important characteristics of rainfall are says intensity, second is duration, or it can be says intensity, duration, or also is called episodes. episodes, intensity, at different periods, frequency, amount of rainfall, or rainfall during each part of the area, each part of the year, each part of the year. So, the important character is the intensity that I have said. The duration is like this, it says episodes. What we discuss about these episodes, like say if there is low rainfall, say this is a very highly intensive rainfall, say just to pictorially if we explain this, the very low intensity rainfall may be something like this, okay, even lower may be something like this. So, here in a rainfall, these are at different times the rainfall would be like this: the high intensity, low intensity, higher intensity, very critical intensity. These are called the episodes. So, the durations or the episodes are related to that. Very high rainfall for during the time, typical time, the time that is generally existent in that area. Intensity of rainfall at different periods, frequency, amount of rainfall during each part of the year. These are the most important. I will come back to this again. There are many things that we generally deal with this. Another important thing that is just briefly I will discuss, and runoff. Runoff is that part of the rainfall that does not infiltrate the soil and flows of the soil surface to a drain or a sediment pond. I will discuss this: sediment pond, sediment pond or other body of water. So, this this has a great importance in the sense like this, say influence soil type and influence. If we just see the soil type, there is sandy soils, high infiltration. So, low runoff. Clay soils, clay soil, high runoff. Uncompacted, uncompacted disturbed soil, compacted disturbed soil. This is low runoff. Influence, effect. Less loss of soil particles, high loss, less or low loss. So this is this is the effect of runoff. The runoff is the part of the rainfall that does not infiltrate the soil and flows over the soil surface to a drain, carrying fine soil particles. So this is the effect of runoff. So mostly, this generally explains about how the soil can be disturbed, and what are the effects, how this soil mostly gets disturbed due to different kinds of activities. So though I have not specifically discussed about the soil being disturbed by engineering activities, I have said that if the soil is disturbed by all means, what are the likely effects that can be seen on the soil. So this should be sufficient for you to understand how this soil erosion takes place and what are the things we should take care of. Okay, in the next class we will begin the next topic again. Okay, right. So today we will begin this the topic mechanical soil erosion control. We have discussed about soil erosion. Essentially we have discussed about how soil generally becomes eroded, and the typical mechanism of soil erosion has already been explained, and we have also explained that how this landslides usually take place. So generally the part of the typical physical mechanism that takes place in such situations we have already discussed. We would now today discuss about how this can be controlled, the soil erosion can be controlled. I explain one important thing about erosion is mostly about the rainfall, about the rainfall being very important. So this is in areas of high rainfall, obviously in areas of high rainfall, obviously the barren slope having soil cover will undergo higher erosion, than that of in a high rainfall, low rainfall area. Okay, So with these things, so you can high rainfall area, mostly in high rainfall area, we need to build mechanical soil erosion control. So these things, water harvesting is becoming extremely popular nowadays in India, across small streams, small ponds, this water harvesting is being applied, and in many situations it has given dramatic results. Particularly in many villages, it has helped improve the life of the villagers by leaps and bounds. I mean, in many cases, because of water harvesting, a village may be able to generate 2 or 3 crops in a year, in comparison to 1 crop that it used to do in a year. So as a result of that, number of economic benefits have also accrued, and not only that, it has also served the use by means of drinking water. Say the drinking water is also being more available with the effect of such kind of structures. So here we see that these are the Chal terraces, that the flat channel terraces that we make, say bench terraces. These are the different types of terraces and their uses. Okay, I mean, there are some design aspects. The design aspects are very simple. I mean, it's not much of a thing here is to say, is observe is that depending, as I have said, so depending on the structure of the slope, depending on the availability of the slope, you can, and the rainfall pattern, you can try to think of how you are going to, what kind of terraces you are going to have. You should also have an understanding how much rainfall you expect, what should be the catchment area by which the water can be actually caught into, so that the water should not spill. I mean, your design should be such that the water does not spill out from the terraces. So these are some of the things that the design aspects that are generally simple in nature, but are also very, very useful. Okay, now having to say this, with these things in mind, the next is the diversion ditches. After what is is mostly in cases of diversion ditches, the examples of this generally either independent or connected with the terrace. The diversion ditches are constructed. Diversion ditches are constructed